Imagine waking up one day only to find that many years have gone by, yet your life appears to have remained stagnant. The ambitions you once cherished feel far off. The objectives you aimed for have slipped into obscurity, and the future you dreamed of feels more like a dream than an achievable reality. You find yourself feeling trapped, merely existing without truly living, anticipating a change that never comes. Have you ever thought about the reason this occurs? What distinguishes those who boldly pursue change and reshape their lives from those who remain ensnared in a loop of doubt and inaction? Today, we're going to uncover a quiet force that may be undermining your success, joy, and potential without your awareness. This force is known as passivity, the tendency to remain inactive while life progresses. It is a subtle, unseen hurdle that prevents you from implementing the necessary changes you recognize you need to make. Perhaps the most troubling aspect is that many individuals never escape it. However, you will, because by the end of this discussion, you will comprehend how passivity influences your life and also uncover a powerful method to liberate yourself. And believe me, the final revelation will be the most crucial, potentially unlocking a future filled with action, self-assurance, and unstoppable momentum. Passivity ranks among the most damaging psychological habits a person can cultivate. Initially, it may not seem like an issue at all. In fact, it often masquerades as patience, overthinking, or the illusion of carefulness. Yet, in truth, it acts as a slow-acting poison. It keeps you trapped in unsatisfactory situations. It allows fear to influence your choices. It persuades you that waiting is the wisest path, even when you know deep down that taking action is the only way forward. But what is the origin of this passivity? Why do some individuals advance in life while others remain immobilized, unable to take essential actions? Psychologists have explored this phenomenon for many years, and one of the most recognized explanations comes from Martin Seligman, known as the father of positive psychology. He introduced the idea of learned helplessness, which illustrates how individuals can become passive over time. In one of his well-known studies, Seligman subjected dogs to a series of uncontrollable negative events. Ultimately, the dogs ceased all attempts to escape, even when they were presented with a clear path to freedom. This same concept can be applied to humans. When we face ongoing failures, rejections, or discouragement, we start to convince ourselves that our efforts are pointless. This mindset begins to influence our attitudes, actions, and ultimately, our reality. Nevertheless, failure isn't the sole reason for becoming inactive. In fact, one of the most insidious reasons is something that seems harmless: comfort. Have you ever realized how simple it is to get caught in a pattern, even if that pattern brings no satisfaction? Our brains are naturally inclined towards safety and certainty. In ancient times, this instinct helped our ancestors survive by steering clear of unnecessary dangers. However, in today's world, this survival instinct often works against us. We find solace in what is known, even if it doesn't align with our true desires. Days fade into weeks, weeks slip into years, and soon enough, we've let life pass us by. This is the real peril of inaction. It doesn't present itself as a threat. It lacks alarms or signals. Instead, it functions quietly. It softly suggests to you that there's still time. You can begin tomorrow, or you should wait for the ideal moment. Yet, the harsh reality is that the perfect moment does not exist. The only time we have is now, and the longer we delay, the more challenging it becomes to take action. However, let's pause for a moment and consider a more profound question. What is the true price of inaction? What occurs when we permit doubt and inactivity to dominate our lives? Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, offered a meaningful perspective on this matter. In his book, Man's Search for Meaning, he claimed that the main motivation of people is not pleasure, as Sigmund Freud theorized, nor power, as Friedrich Nietzsche suggested, but rather the quest for meaning. Frankl believed that when individuals feel lost of meaning, they drift aimlessly through life, caught in a cycle of emptiness and stagnation, And nothing strips away life's significance more than passivity. Consider this. When was the last instance you felt genuinely alive? Was it during a moment of doubt, hesitating, and evading challenges? Or was it when you ventured beyond your comfort zone, took a bold step, and chased something meaningful? The reality is that meaning isn't discovered through passivity. It is forged through action. But here's the question most individuals never contemplate. If an action is so detrimental, why do we keep falling into it? Why do we stay immobilized, even when we realize we should progress? The response might catch you off guard, and understanding it can be enlightening. Everything will change. Picture yourself on the brink of a choice, aware that taking a leap could transform everything, yet still feeling indecisive. You remind yourself that you require more time, that the circumstances aren't ideal, promising to tackle it tomorrow. But tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes next year. And before you know it, nothing has shifted. This illustrates the unseen power of passivity in action and explains why many individuals find themselves trapped in unsatisfying lives. But what causes us to permit this situation? What is the concealed influence that keeps us in a state of inaction, even when we recognize the necessity for change? To explore this, we must delve into a notion called the comfort trap. On the surface, comfort appears beneficial. After all, who wouldn't desire to feel secure, stable, and relaxed? Yet here lies the contradiction. The more we relish comfort, the less inclined we are to embrace the risks that spur growth. While comfort is pleasurable initially, it frequently comes with the price of long-term satisfaction. Have you ever hung on to a job you despised simply because it seemed simpler than starting fresh? Have you clung to a relationship that ceased to bring you joy simply because the idea of change felt daunting? This exemplifies the comfort trap in motion. It persuades you that remaining where you are is preferable to confronting the unknown. However, the reality is that the most profound regrets in life stem not from our errors, but from the opportunities we failed to seize. Researchers in psychology have discovered that our brains are designed to steer clear of uncertainty. Our ancestors depended on stability to survive, steering away from risks that could jeopardize their lives. Yet in today's world, this impulse often backfires. Rather than providing protection, it hinders our progress. Instead of evading threats, we end up missing out on possibilities. Here lies a stark truth. Nobody achieves greatness by remaining in comfort. Every individual who has reached noteworthy accomplishments faced discomfort, uncertainty, and fear. The distinction between those who thrive and those who feel trapped is not based on intelligence, ability, or chance. It's rather about having the resolve to act despite fear. This leads us to one of the most crucial inquiries. How does one escape the hold of passivity? How do you cease waiting and start acting? One impactful approach comes from Mel Robbins, a motivational speaker and author. She proposed a straightforward yet powerful method known as the 5-second rule. The rule is quite simple. When you sense a push to pursue a goal, start counting down from 5. Then take action. Do not allow yourself to hesitate for even a moment. Do not let fear infiltrate your thoughts. Move forward before your mind tries to discourage you. This method is effective because it disrupts the cycle of overthinking and propels you into action. Another vital approach is to transition your attention from motivation to discipline. A lot of individuals wait for the right moment to feel motivated before they act, but the reality is that motivation can be fickle. It fluctuates, and if you rely solely on it, you will find it difficult to maintain steady efforts. In contrast, discipline is what brings about true transformation. Discipline implies doing what is necessary, even when you lack the desire to do so. It involves making choices grounded in your objectives rather than your feelings. James Clear, the writer of Atomic Habits, articulates this concept effectively. He states that success does not stem from making huge overnight changes, but rather from dedicating yourself to small, steady actions over time. If you can get better by just 1% each day, those incremental gains will build up to remarkable outcomes. The issue with being passive is that it works against you. Those tiny instances of hesitation and avoidance add up, leading to a life filled with regret. However, here is a point that most individuals often overlook. Passivity is not merely linked to significant decisions. It emerges in subtle forms throughout each day. It manifests as the reluctance to speak up in a meeting, the procrastination before exercising, and the mindless scrolling through social media instead of engaging in something productive. Every instance of passivity reinforces the habit of doing nothing, making it increasingly challenging to implement change. This is why being self-aware is essential. You need to start recognizing when and how passivity shows up in your life. Reflect on questions like, what tasks do I consistently delay? Where am I allowing fear or comfort to steer my decisions? How different would my life be if I ceased hesitating and began taking action? Yet, before we explore the most effective method to escape passivity, there is another critical aspect to understand, something that traps millions in unfulfilling lives. Once you grasp this, your perspective on passivity will change forever. There exists an underlying factor driving passivity that many fail to see, and it is among the most significant psychological obstacles to taking action. It is not simply fear, laziness, or a lack of motivation. It is something much more insidious: identity paralysis. Identity paralysis occurs when you unconsciously define yourself by your current limitations, circumstances instead of your capabilities. It's the mindset of thinking, this is just who I am, or I have always been like this. And when you believe that your personality, habits, and actions are unchangeable, transformation seems unattainable. Consider this. If you regard yourself as someone who lacks self-discipline, how probable is it that you will adhere to a new routine? If you think you lack leadership qualities, will you ever take charge in situations that necessitate assurance? If you convince yourself that you are poor at decision-making, will you genuinely take command of your life? Your sense of self influences your behavior, and your behavior determines your future. This explains why individuals often find themselves trapped in cycles of inaction. It's not that they cannot transform, but rather that they do not believe transformation is possible. Psychologist Carol Dweck, through her studies on mindset, found that people generally adopt one of two outlooks: a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. People with a fixed mindset think that their skills, intelligence, and personal attributes cannot change. They shy away from challenges, fearing that failure will reveal their shortcomings. Conversely, those with a growth mindset believe in their ability to enhance and develop through effort and education. They welcome challenges, understanding that failure does not define them, but rather serves as a stepping stone for growth. Here's the essential point. In a fixed mindset, inaction thrives. If you think your situation defines you, you won't take steps to alter it. But the instant you transition to a growth mindset, recognizing that every skill, trait, and ability can be improved, inaction loses its grip on you. So, how do you initiate this change? How do you escape the identity stagnation that keeps you inactive? The solution lies in action grounded in identity. James Clear, in his book Atomic Habits, states that real transformation stems from altering how you perceive yourself, not merely from setting targets. Instead of concerning yourself with your objectives, focus on who you need to evolve into. If you wish to be a confident individual, begin behaving like one. If you aspire to be disciplined, make choices that a disciplined individual would make. Every minor step you take signifies a vote for the identity you are embracing. This emphasizes that action must precede motivation. Many people think that they need to feel prepared before acting, but the reality is that taking action actually inspires motivation. When you make even the slightest progress, you redefine your identity, start seeing yourself in a new light, and once that change occurs, momentum develops. But there's an additional aspect to this passivity. It involves not only mindset or identity, but also emotional resistance. Many individuals find themselves immobilized because taking action can provoke significant emotional unease. It might stem from a fear of failure, a fear of being judged, or a fear of moving away from an earlier version of oneself. Neuroscience has revealed that the brain reacts to psychological threats, similarly to how it responds to physical dangers when contemplating leaving one's comfort zone. The brain identifies this as a risk and activates the amygdala, which governs fear and survival mechanisms. This explains why taking action can often be so challenging. Your brain isn't attempting to hinder you, it's trying to shield you from unpredictability. However, here's the crucial point. You don't have to eliminate fear to take action. You simply need to proceed regardless. Each time you act in spite of fear, you change your brain's wiring. You demonstrate that discomfort isn't a hazard. You foster what experts refer to as psychological flexibility, the capacity to advance even if you don't feel entirely prepared. The more frequently you engage in this behavior, the more instinctive it becomes. So, if passivity is fueled by mindset, identity, and emotional resistance, what is the most effective way to escape it? The solution is straightforward, yet many don't recognize it, and once it clicks, everything shifts. The most effective way to overcome passivity is to accept radical responsibility. Radical responsibility involves fully acknowledging that your life is controlled by you, with no more delays, no more rationalizations, and no more blaming your environment, other people, or your history. It involves recognizing that no one is coming to rescue you, and that every decision you make or neglect shapes your future. For many, this hard truth is difficult to accept because it removes all grounds for inaction, yet it is also the most freeing realization you will ever confront. Once you take complete responsibility, you regain your power, stop waiting for changes in your life, and begin to change your life. However, here is where many make a mistake. They assume that taking responsibility means resolving everything all at once. They think they need a flawless strategy, total confidence, and complete certainty before taking any steps. This is yet another trap. The reality is that clarity comes from action, not the reverse. Jeff Bezos, the creator of Amazon, once shared a compelling idea. If you wait until you are completely certain before deciding, you will always find yourself too late. He pointed out that in life, perfect information is never available. You will never feel entirely prepared. But if you can decide with just 70% of the necessary information, you should proceed, as taking action fosters learning, and learning paves the way for improved decisions. This is why successful individuals are not those who have everything figured out. Rather, they are those who take initiative even when things are uncertain. They begin their journey before they feel prepared, taking gradual steps, gaining insights from experience, and adapting along the way. But what about the fear of failure? This is a primary reason many people choose to do nothing. They are so afraid of failing that they prefer inaction over the possibility of making an error. However, what they fail to recognize is that failure isn't the opposite of success. It is a vital element of achieving success. When Thomas Edison was questioned about his numerous failures in creating the light bulb, he famously replied, "I have not failed. I have just found 10,000 ways that do not work." This perspective is shared by every successful person throughout history. They realize that failure does not diminish their value or skill. It is simply a form of feedback. It provides information, and the only real failure lies in not attempting at all. So, how can you implement this knowledge? How can you escape inertia and begin to live with intention and energy? First, remove the notion that you must feel motivated to take action. Motivation arises from taking steps, not before it. Rather than waiting for inspiration, make action an essential habit. Second, change how you view yourself. Stop identifying as someone who struggles with taking action or has always had difficulty. Your history does not dictate your future. Declare today that you are a person who acts, and demonstrate this through your actions. Third, make it easier to take action. Many people feel stuck because they think they need to make significant leaps. However, real progress is made through small, steady actions. If something appears daunting, break it down into manageable parts. If you want to start a new project, dedicate just 5 minutes to it. If you wish to establish a new habit, begin with the simplest version. Small actions yield substantial changes. Lastly, commit to making decisions more quickly. Overanalyzing is a significant contributor to inaction. The longer you delay, the more doubt and fear can creep in. Take charge. Create a guideline for yourself. When faced with a choice, allow yourself a brief period to make a decision, be it 5 seconds, 5 minutes, or 1 day. Then proceed and step forward, as life ultimately rewards those who act. Opportunities and time are not on pause. The future is being formed by the choices you make today. So the critical question is this: what will you choose to do next? Will you keep waiting, overthinking, and hesitating? Or will you take charge, move ahead, and start building the life you truly desire? The decision is yours, and this choice will shape your future more than anything else. Thank you for your attention.